So we are going to talk a little about Jeremy Corbyn. I wouldn't say it's my favorite topic in general because, I do think that Jeremy Corbyn is, being as he is democratically elected, the head of the Labour Party, he does have the right to say whatever he wants. I think that, he's earned his right to be heard, I guess. I don't know any other way to say that. So I don't think that, some of these people saying, well, he should shut up or whatever. I mean, he's the leader of the opposition. He should be able to say whatever he wants. That doesn't mean that he gets to define every single argument the way that he wants it to be. I think that at this point in the debate, Jeremy Corbyn has proven himself, at the very least, to be a complete fucking moron. And I say that because he starts to basically say, well, everything that I do and say can be viewed in the context of the fact that I'm an advocate for Palestine and for the human rights and whatever, and therefore I can say whatever the fuck I want, and people can't basically use what I say to illustrate how much of an idiot I am. That's basically Jeremy Corbyn's position. Jeremy Corbyn, he had a quote, I believe, that was released from a video in 2013 where he claimed that Zionists, despite being born native to England, don't have, or Britain, don't have a sense of English irony. Now, the fact of the matter is that that's a ridiculous statement. Jeremy Corbyn is actually a person who has no concept of irony. He's a humorless cunt. You see him in every single context, and he basically has almost no color to his actual personality. I think the only way that he's succeeded in becoming very popular is because he's good at exuding empathy. He can exude empathy towards the weak. That's basically what I would say. Now, I did write this, and I'd like you guys to take a look at it and share it if you can. And again, this is not telling people what to believe. If you want to be a pro-Palestinian activist, that's fine. That's not really the issue here. And I think if Corbyn wants to advocate for Palestine, that's fine. I'm not going to. I think that should be obvious by now. But the fact of the matter is this, okay? Jeremy Corbyn has so many videos of him basically virtue signaling about how he loves the Palestinian cause that it basically makes it impossible for him to actually explain some of these statements. And I think the issue is not whether he is anti-Semitic or not, because I don't care. I'm not British, and I can't vote in their elections. And even if I could, aside from this topic, I probably wouldn't vote for him because he's basically an economic illiterate. He's never managed anything in his life. He's a total and complete just, novice at everything besides screaming about issues that he has no solutions for. That's Jeremy Corbyn for you. And I'm not going to pretend that I can tell other people how to discern between somebody who's basically, he spent his entire career in politics sitting on a bench and scowling at other people. So please read this article and share it as well. It is in the description. You should be seeing it in the description. In fact, it should be actually the first link. And especially share it. It's already been shared 73 times, that's fairly good for this site, the Times of Israel. By the way, I really write for them on the blog site because it is a good place to get exposure. People share your articles. And those people that think, oh, you appear in the Times of Israel, you must be some sort of Zionist shill. Well, there's a lot of very prominent anti-Zionist people who post on Times of Israel. You should take a look at their blog section. It's really astounding sometimes. I think one of the editors of the blog section is extremely and pro-Palestinian. It's bizarre. So this is a pretty long article, but in it, I actually go into, there's a column here for the Jewish Chronicle by Daniel Sugarman, where he basically compares Corbyn to the communist leader of Poland during the Cold War, Władysław Gomulka, who basically, after the Six-Day War, he prescribed an actual campaign of professional and social harassment against the small remaining Jewish community of Poland and forced them to leave. And it's well documented, and it was conducted with malice. Going to In-N-Out Burger, nice, Lynn and McCarthy. Stay strong, brother. I can't. I have to give him credit for tuning into my cause. I'm going to give credit to his cause. So good job. Is that Mexican uniform? Yeah, I like Mexican soccer team. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not one of these people that are going to say, oh, he's anti-Semitic, he can't say what he wants. Sure, he can say what he wants, but he's still an idiot, and he still says things that are retarded. So during a recent conversation, so this is me speaking about an experience. During a recent conversation with a friend, one far more active and enthusiastic about the pro-Israel cause than me, I posed the question, is he really an existential threat, meaning Corbyn? My friend responded like this from what I can remember. He said, will he actually put Jews into ovens? Highly unlikely, but for those Jewish citizens that find themselves to be the victims of physical attacks or illegal discrimination, they're unlikely to get any help under such leadership. And this is where I'm torn, because the fact is that in Britain, it is currently a problem now under the Conservative Party of Theresa May for not only Jews but other British citizens to get a fair hearing from law enforcement and the courts. In a certain sense, Corbyn's vision of a social justice-centered state and media has already been fulfilled without him even coming to power. So then I give all the, so to cut it short, I give a summary of several. Look, Jeremy Corbyn is not the only issue here, and the Jewish community in Britain is committing a huge error in only focusing on Jeremy Corbyn, because they've allowed the rest of the whole disease to spread so far that why should I just focus on Jeremy Corbyn? He's a piece of crap in a much larger pile of crap that's gathered in Britain. Because I did this story last year, and it had nothing to do with the electoral politics of Britain. It had nothing to do with labor. It had nothing to do with socialism per se. It had to do with the fact that there were these articles coming out in The Guardian that, for example, I'll open this one up, okay? It says, pregnant women don't need a blanket ban on drinking, they need the facts. And it was basically an article that said, because, listen to this, because there had never been a study conducted on women drinking during pregnancy using moderate drinking, therefore it was discriminatory to tell women not to drink during pregnancy. So within a week, there were not one, not two, there were 3 articles, all by sociologists in The Guardian and in the Daily Telegraph, which is supposed to be, quote unquote, conservative, I guess. You know, because the word conservatism really doesn't mean anything anymore. What we really need is logic-based people. You know, don't even use the words liberal or conservative anymore. Either you believe in empirical proof and logic, or you don't. And you shouldn't have to define yourself politically to espouse that, okay? Because there are plenty of irrational conservatives as well. I mean, you have, for example, the religious right, the Jerry Falwell type people, and they have a right to their opinions as well, just like the wacko lefty people do, the ones who think that you can basically, you know, change your sex the same way that the same way that you order a burger from In-N-Out, it should be just as easy. Right, Lennon McCarthy? So, I'm sorry, but England has lost its logic for a long time. It's just gone completely out the window. there was a series of articles last year that were just saying, well, this is shaming pregnant women into not drinking. And then there, of course, there's the whole Brexit thing where there's an entire movement of people that say, well, we have to annul the referendum because the people who voted in a popular vote, a referendum that was explicitly based on the popular vote, they did it wrong. And we have to go back because they didn't know what they were voting for. And this time we'll make sure that they vote for the right choice. Yeah, so they formed their own party. And this is not Corbyn's fault here. What Corbyn's fault is that he doesn't authoritatively say, full stop, that he's for Brexit. He's a liar about it. He plays coy and everything, and people forgive him because there's so many people who are pro-EU within the Labour Party. But the fact is that there are a lot of British people within the Labour Party, outside of the Labour Party, that have irrationally said, because we're butthurt and want to be part of the EU and want to basically surrender the British way of life, we have to hold another referendum. Ryushishka is really freaking out now. I don't know what's going on with him. And then you have also the fact that these people, these retards, who say, well, you're abridging Corbyn's freedom of speech, which, I mean, they have a bit of a point, except they're not abridging his freedom of speech. They're simply pointing out he said some things that are ridiculously stupid and in their opinion, anti-Semitic, and they have a bit of a case. Not even a bit of a case. They have a pretty strong case. You could also state the case that he's just an anti-Zionist, which I'd say that even if he is one, he's clearly obsessed with the issues of Israel and Palestine to a point where you have to remember you're supposed to be the Prime Minister of Britain, not the Prime Minister of Palestine. Okay, just like there's so many politicians here in the U.S., and I'll concede that point, that are too obsessed with supporting Israel. Nikki Haley, for example, it's like, good God. I mean, it's just so a lot of people, they send me flack and they're like, well, why can't you just support the cause? I'm like, well, maybe because it just seems completely and utterly blown out of proportion, this whole issue. There's other issues in the world. I highlight Latin America all the time that I think are just as much, if not much more important than the Middle East. I'm not freaking out. You're not trolling if you're literally commenting more than anybody else. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, man. That's not trolling. So that, yeah, they're such hypocrites that while they're complaining that Corbyn is being silenced, they never complained once about the arrest of Tommy Robinson. On the contrary, Owen Jones, their columnist for The Guardian, this Marxist pro-Corbyn columnist, he said that Robinson is no martyr for freedom of speech. And there you go. And this person in The Guardian, again, which doesn't allow comments anymore because they apparently they don't want to be, they don't want to be scrutinized by their own readers. This is a person who says, well, men can self-identify as women and become transsexuals, or they can be a transsexual and self-identify as a woman. But he insists on using Robinson's birth name, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, all the time. So yes, I can change my name to Andrea Doria after the stupid cruise ship that went down. It's not stupid. I mean, I guess it is technically a tragedy, even though it's 30 years later. And Seinfeld already made fun of it, so, cool your jets, complainers. But I'm sorry. But you have Owen Jones basically using his birth name when everybody knows him as Tommy Robinson. We get it that you don't like using people's names if you don't like them. But, he keeps bringing up Joe Cox, nothing to do with Tommy Robinson. And Anders Breivik, that was 5 years ago. That never brings up Islamist terrorists that come into Britain because in the end, Owen Jones only cares about Owen Jones. He's just as selfish as anyone else. So this is the voice of the Corbyn movement. This posh, preppy looking asshole, who, by the way, last time I think I featured a video of him with that woman who was on TV one time calling Piers Morgan, an idiot and claiming that he's alt-right. Yes, Piers Morgan, the gun control fanatic, is alt-right. Yeah, you're retarded. You're retarded. So these people, that they decide when you say something they don't like, you're automatically alt-right. You're automatically alt-right. Forgive me for talking to people in the chat. No, man, you're talking to yourself. Yeah, most of these comments are just him talking to himself. I find Ryu Shiska's behavior in the chat just fascinating. It's just sometimes it's like watching some sort of, like the Son of Sam. Like, you ever see that movie Summer of Sam where he's scribbling on the walls and getting ready to go out for the next murder? That's how I imagine Ryu Shiska in the chat. Who's worse, Corbyn or May? Wow, May is a bigger traitor and a traitor to her own party, and Corbyn is the bigger danger for the world. So I don't know what to say about that. You could argue that they're the same crap, because she went to South Africa this week and basically bowed her head in deference to their idiotic government, the one that's basically going to ruin South Africa forever. In the last 5 years, there have been 2 attacks by insane people who claim to be right-wing, but the hundreds of Islamic attacks get bupkis. Shameful. Yeah, I mean, that's really the way it is, and because of The Guardian, which doesn't allow comments anymore, but they want to claim that Tommy Robinson is no martyr for free speech. Then why don't you let us comment on your article, and how about the people who use free speech? How about they comment and decide, not you? You Posh Spice looking retard. And then you have this issue of where a Labor politician, it was such an issue that one of them had to basically pay money to an aide that he was sleeping with, apparently. A member of parliament paid hush money to an aide that he was sleeping with in order to shut her up about anti-Semitism. I'll put this article in the chat because I don't think it's in the description. So let me see if I can find. Yeah, this is from the Telegraph, which, by the way, there's a paywall, so nothing I can do. Yeah, he he slept with that. Not the easiest on the eyes, by the way. So look at this photo. This is why, there are no good guys here. There is no, you have Corbyn, who's basically garbage, and he just has virtually no actual ideas of his own. He's just a communist who sat on the shelf for very long, and eventually everybody else got so bad that he got his shot at the prime time. And then you have this idiot and his and his squeeze, who pretty much looks like she could probably snap him in two because she has man hands. That's another. If anybody knows, she looks like a horse. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna look. I don't care about victim blaming in this case because, at the time maybe you shouldn't have taken the money. Maybe you should have just said something and been done with it. So we're gonna get to some other stuff, but yeah, as somebody who I am Jewish, but it's really annoying sometimes to you ever see those videos where people start off and they say, as a Latino man, as a Chinese American, as a Jewish person, I'm sorry, but, and I know that was annoying, and I deliberately made that voice very annoying, but, it's easy for me to say as a Jewish person that I denounce Jeremy Corbyn, but that's not really the, that would undermine the real issue that I think is the problem. The problem is transparency. The problem is being honest to the listeners, okay? And for Jeremy Corbyn to go around and say, I never condone anti-Semitism. I don't think that Jews are a problem. I'm only an anti-Zionist or whatever. Well, you're the same person who lies all the time about your ties to the Irish Republican Army. So if you lie about one thing, this is a real problem. If you lie about one thing and you can't keep your story straight about one thing, and you're also incompetent about economics, and you're also somebody who consistently, you're just all the time portraying yourself as the defender of all this social justice bullshit, then there's no reason for me to believe you either. This is an issue of credibility. And in my opinion, I could care less if he's the most hateful piece of crap in the world. He can do that. And I know a lot of people who are very hateful, and I'm often very hateful myself. And what can I say? Judge not lest ye be judged. But you're supposed to run a country, and then you're running around getting into all these stupid tiffs over whether Palestine or Israel or whatever. You're supposed to be the prime minister of Britain one day if you're going to be elected. You're supposed to be a British prime minister, and yet you have all these skeletons in the closet because you're basically molding your entire career until now on being some sort of international social justice man. Like basically the communist parody of Austin Powers. As Jewish person, I denounced socialism. Sislowski, I thought you were Polish. I am Jewish, so what? How much do you think that man lady can bench press? Yeah, that's a good question. Asking Pinochet. 1,000. Yeah, she could probably break all of our necks and eat it. Eat the marrow out of our vertebrae. That's basically how I see her. So let's play some of this clip. It's a really long clip, but we'll see how it goes. I think I might have picked a bad time in the middle, but you can basically, I think I have the whole clip in the description if you want to check it out. And this is Eddie Dempsey condemning Rabbi Sachs. You know what? Oh, here we go. So let me give some context first. Jeremy Corbyn and Jonathan Sachs and the anti-Semitism row engulfing labor. So let me set the scene, okay? So, of course, there's always the debate over whether Judaism is a race or a religion. Now, I've always said that if it's such a race, then how is it that Lenny Kravitz is sometimes lumped in with the Jews? Even though, according to the Jewish religion, because it's his dad who is Jewish, he's not technically Jewish. He's not Jewish. But he's a good guy. Nothing wrong with that. So he's not Jewish. It's because according to the legal the religious definition, he's not. That's just the way it is. He could become Jewish. He could. There's actually I think a little more of an expedited conversion process for somebody whose dad is Jewish. You have to be, your mom has to be Jewish in order for you to be born a Jew. But you can convert, so it's not a race. It's kind of both, but mostly a religion, in my humble opinion. No, if it's really a race, then I have a friend, a very close friend, who is German-Irish, who converted to Judaism. So he's not racially Jewish at all. He's actually 0%. And you could go all the decimal points you want. He's not even a speck Jewish. He just converted to it. And he's, that racially he's completely a different race than whatever race you're talking about, which doesn't exist in fact. And then you have myself. I'm half Ukrainian and I'm half Middle Eastern from Iraq. So what race is that? I mean, somebody please explain. I put down, one time I went to urgent care. I had such a bad coughing attack that I went to urgent care. and they have the questionnaire, and they ask what race, and I'm like, only God knows. That I actually wrote that out because it doesn't matter. It's like, what the hell do you care? So basically, Jonathan Sacks. Let me see if I can find a better article, because this only gives the reactions. That's how you kick open the genetic door. But there is no genetic door. Let me see if I can find the original source. The thing is, I can never find the actual. Okay, here we go. It's in the New Statesman. So the New Statesman is a pretty prominent left-wing publication. I think it is American. It's not British. But it says, Corbyn's Zionist remarks were most offensive since Enoch Powell, says ex-chief rabbi. Now, Enoch Powell, for those of you that don't know, was a British conservative politician of the 1970s and before that. CNN has still not fired those people who said those racist statements about Antifa being a black organization. Yeah, they're not going to fire them because accountability doesn't exist at CNN. Then how do they test for Ashkenazi bloodlines? Just curious. You know, the Ashkenazi bloodlines is a specific region of Europe, and that's not the entire. So okay, so you're talking about a specific region of the world where a lot of those people happen to be Jewish. But I'll bet you that if you go into some of those some of those regions, you'll find significant differences between the Romanian ones and the Polish ones, for example. There's really no way to. I mean, you're free to do the study if you want. Crane Racky, I like the sound of that. Iraqranian? No, I like the second. Suggestion. So Enoch Powell was an anti-immigration politician in Britain, and he was more afraid of the West Indian black immigration of the 1970s than of Islam, which is really the topic of today. But Enoch Powell, this was in 1968, he issued a speech called the Rivers of Blood speech that many people were they still cite as one of the most incendiary speeches in the history of British politics. So Jeremy Corbyn is an anti-Semite who has given support to racists, terrorists, and dealers of hate, the former chief rabbi Jonathan Sacks has said. In an exclusive interview with the New Statesman, the peer described Corbyn's recently reported 2013 remarks on Zionists as, quote, the most offensive statement made by a senior British politician since Enoch Powell's 1968 Rivers of Blood speech. Sacks, who was chief rabbi from 1991 until 2013, added it was a divisive, hateful, and like Powell's speech, it undermines the existence of an entire group of British citizens by depicting them as essentially alien. Enoch was a thinker before his times. He was just a man of his times, Pinochet says. Well, I think you make a valid point, which is that Enoch Powell spoke for the beliefs of the British people of 1968. And so why would you criticize him as racist for speaking for the people of his time, and then you give Corbyn a break for whatever the hell he's doing now? So basically you're saying, as long as you can justify the fact that you're in a certain era and everybody else agrees with you, everything you say is A-okay. That's basically the point that Jeremy Corbyn's people would probably make as well. And the fact that they say, oh, he's standing up for social justice worldwide and Palestine. I mean, it's the same excuse every time, but in reality, there's ways to advocate for a cause, and there's ways to make your cause look ridiculous. And that's what Jeremy Corbyn does. At a speech made at the Palestinian Return Center in London in 2013, Corbyn said of a group of British, quote, Zionists, they clearly have two problems. One is they don't want to study history, and secondly, having lived in the country for a very long time, probably all their lives, they don't understand English irony either. Now let me say something. There are, again, I said this before, and I'm sorry to toot my own horn or the horn of toot the Jewish horn. I guess this is the month of Elul, by the way, when we do have the ram's horn is being basically sounded every morning for the new year. So I guess 'tis the season. But Jewish humor is not something that's exactly a secret. So I don't think that Corbyn, who has like the most invisible sense of humor of any British person I've ever seen, he's no person to lecture anyone, least of all Jewish people, on humor. And probably not, by the way, there's a lot of funny British people who, for example, Simon Pegg. I love his movies. What's that guy's name? Alan Partridge? Steve Coogan, if you guys know who I'm talking about. Amazing comedian. In his first comments since Labour's anti-Semitism crisis reached new heights this summer, Sachs told the New Statesman, the recently disclosed remarks by Jeremy Corbyn are the most offensive. Why do we keep seeing the same sentence over again? We can only judge Jeremy Corbyn by his words and his actions. He has given support to racists, terrorists, and dealers of hate who want to kill Jews and remove Israel from the map. This is badly written. When he implies that, however long they have lived here, Jews are not fully British, he is using the language of classic pre-war European anti-Semitism. When challenged with such facts, the evidence for which is before our eyes, first he denies, then he equivocates, then he obfuscates. This is low, dishonest, and dangerous. He has legitimized the public expression of hate, and where he leads, others will follow. Pinochet says, by the way, to be fair, Powell was a creepy-looking guy, so that didn't help his cause. Well, Corbyn doesn't look... I mean, he looks kind of like a creepy old man, but I think... Again, let's just be fair here. Jeremy Corbyn, love him or hate him, he has a rapport with British people. British people think when they see Jeremy Corbyn, when they hear Jeremy Corbyn talk, they hear somebody who cares. And it might piss you off, and it might make you, especially if you're one of his opponents, it might make you think, well, how does he get away with that? Well, maybe you should try to be different as well, or maybe you don't have the natural ability that he does. So I don't like Jeremy Corbyn. At the same time, I have to give props to where he, the things that he does that are, that are effective. What do you want me to say? That obviously he was able to win his election or whatever, and then become head of the Labour Party. These things don't happen by accident. They're not things that, obviously in the socialist organization you can still fail upward, but I don't think that that's the case here, because he did try very hard, and he tried hard to win, and he hasn't given up. And you have to respect that part, even if you don't respect a lot of other things about him. For more than 3.5 centuries, the Jews of Britain have contributed to every aspect of national life. We know our history better than Mr. Corbyn, and we have learned that the hate that begins with Jews never ends with Jews. Mr. Corbyn's embrace of hate defiles our politics and demeans the country we love. A Labour spokesman said in response, this comparison with the race-baiting Enoch Powell is absurd and offensive. Jeremy Corbyn described a particular group of pro-Israel activists as Zionists, in the accurate political sense, not as a synonym or code for Jewish people. Jeremy Corbyn is determined to tackle anti-Semitism within the Labour Party and in wider society. And the Labour Party is committed to rebuilding trust with the Jewish community. In a statement issued to The Guardian last Friday night, Corbyn said he had used the term Zionists in the accurate political sense and not as a euphemism for Jewish people. He added, I am now more careful with how I might use the term Zionist because a once self-identifying political term has been increasingly hijacked by anti-Semites as a code for Jews. So I want people to understand that it is possible to state, yes, I was only talking about Zionists, people who believe in Zionism. But if you look at some of the people who, first of all, the most famous anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish piece of literature in history is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, of the Learned Elders of Zion. Then there is, of course, I think it's Lyndon LaRouche. So so if anybody remembers him, we might as not even dive into David Duke because that would take forever. But British journalist Roger Boys wrote, "Anti-Semitism is at the core of LaRouche's conspiracy theories." So Lyndon LaRouche was a guy who used to run for president literally all the time. Daniel Levitas wrote in 1995 that LaRouche has been consistent in creating and elaborating conspiracy theories that contain a strong dose of anti-Semitism. As an example of LaRouche's alleged anti-Semitism, Dennis King cited LaRouche's statement under the pen name L. Marcus in the case of Ludwig Feuerbach. Jewish culture is merely the residue left to the Jewish home after everything is saleable has been marketed to the Goyim. That's a pretty harsh one. And then, he just keeps going and going. But LaRouche uses a term. So LaRouche's critics have said that he is a disguised anti-Semite and that he takes the classical anti-Semitic conspiracy theory and substitutes the word Zionist for the word Jew, and ascribes the classical anti-Semitic caricature of the scheming Jew to particular Jewish individuals and groups of Jews rather than to the Jews as a whole. Modern Zionism was not created by Jews, but was a project developed chiefly by Oxford University, LaRouche says. Oh, is that how it started? He says Zionism is not Judaism. Pinochet says, I don't like seeing either Corbyn or Powell get grief. That said, I have a really hard time feeling bad for Corbyn. This isn't about feeling bad for anybody. This is about getting to really what the issue is. Okay, the issue is, let me talk like real for a second. Okay? The issue is, are you being honest to the public or are you not being honest? Because if you really are honest to the public, you would acknowledge that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, Corbyn. You would acknowledge that there are issues where you've found yourself standing on podiums with people who have committed literally violent crimes in the name of liberation, but that doesn't mean that people can't look at you and say, "What the hell were you thinking?" He went to a memorial service at the graves of people who were armed, terrorists. They were literally engaged in terrorism for the sake of terrorism. They were not duplicitous about it. The people that he visited their graves in Tunis were terrorists, and you can parse words about it, and I didn't mean it this way, and then it's all about Palestine or whatever. You did do it, and you did know why you were doing it, and stop just hiding behind all this stuff about noble causes. Okay, this is actually far more egregious than anything that any of the Trumps have been accused of. Any of the Trumps, people accuse Donald Trump Jr. of stuff, the hunting and the crap or whatever. So that's really the question. It's not about feeling bad for Corbyn. I don't feel bad for Corbyn. I'm just trying to be consistent here. In a statement issued to The Guardian last night, Corbyn said he had used the terms. So yeah, he already went through this. And then you have this guy responding to Corbyn, to Jonathan Sachs, saying this.
The point there. I mean, even if, as you say, believe that Jeremy Corbyn is not anti-Semitic, and there is evidence to that end, you've got to say he's the unluckiest anti-racism campaigner that there's ever been, given how often he has appeared on platforms.
Sorry, this has been reloading a lot. I tried to get it to work earlier.
Debate up until this point, so I think perhaps when some
that there's ever been, given how often he has appeared on platforms with people with not just not just divergent views, political views from the mainstream here in the United Kingdom, but with absolutely abhorrent views.
Yeah, well, I'd find. I think it's because he's been very successful. He's a challenge to the political class, and they don't know how to handle him. I mean, frankly, no leader of the Labour Party, of any Labour Party in its history, has done more to tackle anti-Semitism in the party than Jeremy Corbyn. And that's proven by everything that you're seeing going on at the moment. I mean, look.
So this guy's point, this is Eddie Dempsey, who's a union leader. He's the head of a major trade union. I think it's the RTU, the Railway Transit Union, I think it is, in Britain, and he's a radical left-wing activist. Maybe you got to update your online player. What are you talking about? I don't even know what you mean. Oh, yeah, the player. I see what you mean. No, I don't think that's the issue, because I know a lot of other people that do that too, that have that issue too, especially with playback. When assessing an issue, one either goes as far back in history as possible, or they're being selective in their outrage. So in any case, this guy is arguing that Jeremy Corbyn is just the shit, and if you don't like him, you must be part of the establishment. And furthermore, that he's tackling more anti-Semitism than anybody who's been a leader of the Labour Party before. Now, I don't know much about the Labour Party prior to Corbyn having anti-Semitic incidents, but the fact is that a lot of this stuff has really just cropped up because Jeremy Corbyn is the leader. So, yes, he created a problem, and apparently he has to tackle it now. So what are you proving?
Just see what's going on in the media. First, he's a Czech spy. He's an IRA volunteer. He's Enoch Powell this week. I mean,
nobody said he was an IRA volunteer, but the fact is that he did meet with IRA terrorists, and he fraternized with them openly. And he's a supporter of an organization that bombed British targets. And that should be a bigger issue, a much bigger. Look, this is not kind of a non-issue, but the fact is he supported an organization that bombed his own country. That's also very fucked up, and I don't think I find it strange that people don't focus on that as much.
What's next? He's the third man on the grassy knoll. Maybe he did Shergar. The whole thing is becoming comedic, and it's not really like serious journalism.
So this guy is claiming that they're basically concocting conspiracy theories about Jeremy Corbyn, when in reality Corbyn has been the one who's been dodging the truth about what he's been saying. Okay, these videos just keep coming out all the time of him at these events. Sometimes he'll deny it, and then there was the wreath laying that he also denied initially, and then he admitted it. And you want to say that other people are engaging in conspiracy theories when he's been lying? That's really the issue here. That you have to, if you're not being upfront and forthcoming, you can't claim he's the only honest British politician, because he's lied several times in this process.
What happens is some hack journalist breaks a story attacking Jeremy Corbyn, and then it's picked up by right-wing voices who pile on to try and create a hysteria around it. The idea that Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic is laughable. Anyone that knows him in the Labour movement knows that is ridiculous. He spent his entire career fighting against racism and bigotry and championing the rights of people who are oppressed. And it's precisely because of that he's being attacked. Because what they fear most is a political leader in this country who actually does stand up for the rights of the Palestinian people, who actually
debate up until this point.
Right.
So I don't understand why you keep mentioning the rights of Palestinians, which is a very, very worthwhile cause. We're talking about the British Jewish community, who are horrified and scared and deeply offended by the way Jeremy Corbyn has behaved for a number of years, including when he's become leader of the opposition. This is not about any wider international cause or peace. This is a very specific thing. This is about the leader of the opposition, whilst a backbench Labour MP, made comments that many would consider anti-Semitic, who used the phrase Zionist clearly as a way of talking about Jews, as clearly as a way of dismissing and making aliens of Jews.
He was referring to specific individuals. No. He was referring to specific individuals who were Zionists in a political ideology sense of the word. Yes, he was not using it to refer to all
And he didn't
Jews,
look at the mural properly, and he
anti-Semitic.
didn't know whose graves he were at. Yes, we've done this dance a number of times.
Jeremy Corbyn's done nothing wrong, and there's been no leader of the Labour Party that's done as much as Jeremy Corbyn.
That's a joke.
Jeremy Corbyn has done nothing wrong about nothing, and he's basically a fucking saint, Saint Jeremy. Somebody sent me one of the people that I talked to offline sent me. He says his nickname for Jeremy Corbyn is Saint Jeremy. The guy, he didn't do nothing wrong. Speaking of terrorism, they're not charging the man in his terrorism cult in New Mexico. Yeah, we actually touched on that in the stream earlier with Len and McCarthy, if you saw that one.
Tackle anti-Semitism
I mean,
in the party.
that's just a farcical comment because no other leader of the Labour Party has had to deal with the levels of anti-Semitism.
Well,
that
when
Jeremy
this
Corbyn
dies
has.
down, and when this latest smear doesn't work, what's the next one going to be? Okay. I mean, is he going to be the third man on the grassy knoll? Is he going to be responsible?
Yeah, so he just goes for that one again.
I mean, what's next?
It's getting ridiculous. It's a shame you can't take this conversation seriously.
Listen, I have one question. I'm going to ask one question separately to each of you.
Sorry, now, can I just make one more point before? I just wanted to say, if Jeremy Corbyn has done so much to deal with anti-Semitism, why are there still the best part of 300 cases, I think it was 270 I read yesterday, that are outstanding? Eddie, why is that if he's dealing with it?
Eddie, why are there so many anti-Semitism cases outstanding? And why do, according to the polls, does the majority of the British Jewish community feel that he is behaving, he has said things in an anti-Semitic fashion and has behaved in an anti-Semitic fashion? Are they just wrong?
There are so many cases being dealt with because these cases are now being dealt with under Jeremy Corbyn. That's why, because he's tackling the issue.
They've only emerged under Jeremy Corbyn.
I mean, the idea that Jeremy Corbyn is an anti-Semite is absolutely ridiculous. Everyone in the Labour movement knows it. A lot of people that are levelling these charges at him know it too. The reason Jeremy is being attacked is because he's a principled leader and he stands up for people who are facing injustice. The political class and the media class don't know how to deal with him, so that is what they're doing.
Charlotte, in all honesty, is it possible for people in the United Kingdom and elsewhere to be anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian and not be anti-Semitic, or at the very least not be accused of anti-Semitism when they make points like that?
It's certainly possible to criticise the democratic government of the State of Israel without being anti-Semitic. It's absolutely possible to propose and support a two-state solution for the Jews in Israel and for Palestinians without being anti-Semitic. Yes, both those things are absolutely probably true.
Sorry.
Yes, and there are a number of organisations around the world that do so very successfully. The biggest irony of all of this is that Jeremy Corbyn, who claims such support for the Palestinian cause, actually his behaviour does nothing to help it at all. All it does is diminish a very legitimate cause.
Eddie, just to conclude.
Yeah, well, I'd say, Lord Sachs doesn't share that view. Otherwise, he wouldn't be participating in marches in occupied Palestinian territories where people are shouting death to the Arabs and burn down the Alaska Mosque. This is not a person who is credible to pass judgment.
So my understanding is that Rabbi Sachs, Lord Jonathan Sachs, did not actually appear in that march at all. He didn't go there. He wasn't a participant. Maybe I'm wrong, but based on an account I heard before, it's not true. Okay, that is not true about him. If somebody finds otherwise, I'm open to hearing that. But the other issue with him saying that is that he mispronounced it. It's Al-Aqsa. It's not Alaska. There's no Alaska mosque. So this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. If he was such a stickler on Palestine issues, Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay, I'll show you a picture of it. That's what it is. Hold on. You'll be able to see it in a second. This is it. That's on. It's pretty fucking hilarious. Now I'm going to get death threats. So yeah, that's the mosque that's on the Temple Mount, where the Jewish temple was originally. So look, that's the truth. So he doesn't know how to pronounce it. So why is he such an expert? If she's not an expert, then what? Look, I'm not going to say that everything she's saying is necessarily the gospel and the truth, or that I think she's doing an effective case because she sounds like kind of a whiny liberal, but the fact is that the guy does not sound very knowledgeable about the issue at all.
And on Jeremy Corbyn, considering his political opinions on the entire thing, he's a far-right extremist, and if you behave that way in this country, you'd be thrown in jail.
Sorry, that's an embarrassing comment to dismiss. To say that Lord Sachs, the former chief rabbi of British Jews, is not placed to comment on anti-Semitism is, I mean, beyond.
He's a far-right extremist.
That's just a nonsense statement that you just keep saying, but it's not entirely. It's not true at all. It's just.
I'm afraid, guys, we appear to be going round in circles on that particular.
So this host never challenges that statement, and I want you guys to understand that in order to be the chief rabbi of a country. Well, the chief rabbi of Britain, the Queen of England, or the monarch, has to pick you. And I know some of you guys are probably like, well, fuck the Queen of England. You know, the Windsors, and some of you guys are into the whole Rothschilds thing, which I don't really focus on, although some of it is kind of bizarre. And I saw actually a very weird video about them. But I don't really dwell on that issue. In any case, yeah, you have to be officially vetted by the British government in order to get that position. And this is a person who served for 22 years as a chief rabbi of Britain. And yeah, Jonathan Sachs is, yeah, this is him. And not only is he one of the most respected religious leaders of the Jewish community in Britain, he's respected around the world as a religious leader, period. And especially among Jews around the world. And he's certainly not considered a far-right figure. And these are the same types of people who they claimed that, for example, Samuel Arian, who is the head of the Islamic Jihad organization in Florida, he was basically the world head of Islamic Jihad. They claimed that his civil rights were abridged because he was indicted for you know, a number of terror attacks that he directly funded. So they want to complain about Jonathan Sachs, who's never actually committed a violent act, never funded a violent act, never planned a violent act, never did anything. I mean, as a political figure such as he was the chief rabbi, which is, you know, kind of a ceremonial position. It doesn't have any power over people, but. You know, I think there's I believe that there's a British Council of Imams, but this is truly a case of some people who say, well, we are entitled, and I think I'm gonna have to do a different stream about this issue later. But there are people who say that, well, if you are a Jewish person and you believe in all of the progressive issues, you know, you're pro-abortion, you're pro-animal rights, or you're pro-gay rights or whatever, of which, you know, I am in favor of animal rights, but the other two, you know, fuck those, abortion and gay rights, and all those other, you know, things, you know, the whole, you know, public schools are important thing. No, I don't believe. I believe if people are able to homeschool, so therefore I don't think that public school is as important as people have thought it is. It's important for some people. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not important for everybody. But they think that so long as you checked all those lists of issues that you believe in as social justice, then you get your Jewish card. Then you get, this is Katie Halper, for example, who appears in, you know, she appears on TYT every once in a while. So she starts this argument where she says this Julia Carmel, we're going to do this a different time. It's just going to take too long. There's a woman running for state senate in New York who is she was claiming for a long time to be Jewish, and she just isn't. You know, neither of her parents are, and she never actually converted. But she's a member of this Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. And the truth is that, which is by the way a very hard left organization. Well, I mean, she's not actually Jewish. She was actually a member of Christians United for Israel at a certain point before she underwent a political conversion and started to reject Zionism, so to speak, which you're free to do. But just because you reject Zionism does not now make you entitled to claim that you're Jewish. Okay, it doesn't work that way. There's no logical following between one and the other. You can be anti-Zionist and also be Jewish, as Katie Halper is, but it does not entitle you to say, well, I'm Jewish now. And she gives all of these examples. She says, Dear Jews, smearing Julia Carmel and at Salazar Senate 18 by saying you have to be religious / have a Jewish mom to be Jewish. You're talking about Judaism, not Jewishness. Good luck claiming Larry David, Bernie Sanders, misspells Bernie Sanders, Woody Allen, Albert Einstein, and Freud aren't real Jews. Thanks. Well, all those people happen to have Jewish mothers. So she actually just undid her. She basically owned gold totally there, because yes, let's say you are completely an atheist, believe in literally nothing, but your mother is Jewish. Well, yes, under the actual doctrine, the Jewish doctrine, you'll still be Jewish. That's why Bernie Sanders is, but in terms of belief system, he's not. I'm curious where the 11 kids are. Yeah, I think you guys are still talking about the New Mexico thing. Yeah, that's really like, I mean, the question is, where does it go now? I heard that the local police are able to refile charges, but I don't know what's actually happened. So Salazar 18 is Jewish, but like Linda Sarsour is a person of color. Both of them claimed their false new identities because it was politically expedient. And then Halper said, yeah, being a Palestinian is peak white privilege. Why is she fronting? Yeah, you use the wrong usage for peak. I'm going to be a grammar Nazi there. So then she said, so then he says, excellent question. Why don't you ask her? She says she used to be a white girl from Brooklyn. And now that she's Palestinian, she can claim any color that she wants. Let me know if this bothers you at all, or if it sounds right. Let's try to play this.
When I wasn't wearing hijab, I was just some ordinary white girl from New York City. Wearing hijab made you know that I was Muslim. When I wasn't wearing hijab, I was just some ordinary white girl from New York City. Wearing hijab made you know that I was Muslim.
So an article of clothing does not give you an actual skin tone. It doesn't give you a pigment. Okay? I'm sorry. You can't just hand people identities because you like them, Katie Halper. And Katie Halper is, by the way, I consider her a true bitch. Okay? So, all this stuff about Corbyn being, this, bad, evil person, whatever. Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn's a dick too, but he's not somebody who, he did work to get where he is. He did work, at least in terms of the party. Everything else, he probably just loafed around and did nothing, just like any good socialist. But she's basically saying, well, who are you to not let her call herself what we are or whatever? Well, this is the same thing that they always do. It's the same thing as with Elizabeth Warren. Okay, Elizabeth Warren, who does not have a single piece of evidence that she's Native American or American Indian or whatever. It's the same issue every time. They don't, and then they want to blame other people for cultural appropriation. They wanted to attack Bruno Mars for cultural appropriation. They wanted to attack, who's another example? Who's also been attacked for cultural appropriation? Justin Timberlake. Hall & Oates. All these people they want to attack for cultural appropriation. Well, okay, so then Katie Halper, what makes you Jewish then? How do you define how you are Jewish? Because of your bullshit value system that has nothing to do with Scripture? Because look, I may not be the most religiously devout person, but I acknowledge that what the main input into how connected you are to Judaism is your knowledge of either literal biblical scripture of the Old Testament or or no, I mean, in addition to that, learning the Jewish laws and texts and literature, Hasidism and all that. That's the way it is. I'm not the greatest person at that, but at least I can acknowledge that. She, on the other hand, she thinks that basically having a membership, having a subscription to the Forward or the Nation makes you that. That's not the way it works. That's about it. I thank you guys for coming, even though you mostly focus on the New Mexico thing, which I gotta admit, most people are a little suspicious about that. But thanks for watching anyway. I want to tell you to please like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you get the notifications. Send me your email. My email is chefleopardyt@gmail.com. So send me basically your email, and we'll start a mailing list. I haven't gotten any responses yet, so I don't understand. If you guys don't get the notifications, but you want it known that you want to be advised when a video is happening, then how do you want me to do it? Okay, so yeah, send me your email if you want to be on the mailing list. Yeah, and please like, subscribe, comment on the video when it uploads, and share, and I'll have another video probably Saturday night. And that's about it. Take it easy.